Am I up? Draw your swords. Pull it out. Let's start in Hebrews today. Go to Hebrews 11. And we're just doing this just to read something off the beginning, because I like Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11 is called the faith chapter. It starts off with the definition of faith. It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do not appear. By faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained a witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, by him being dead yet speaketh. And that by faith Enoch was translated so that he should not see death, and was not found, because God has translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony: he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please him, that's God. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those that diligently seek him. It'd be real good if it wasn't that diligent word wasn't put in there. Anybody here know what entomology is? Insect entomology is the study of bugs and their origin. Entomology, more globally, is just the etymology of words. When we talk about the etymology of words, we're talking about how these words and phrases came about. Okay? Where did it come from? You know where most of our weird sayings come from? Let me give you a hint. The Bible has been part of our society and our culture for centuries, if not millennia. And we have lots of things. And I like to find them. But they tell a story as well. We're going to talk about two of them right off the bat. Go to Daniel 5. Now, Daniel was a prophet. He was a wise man. And he served several kings, most of them not Jewish or Israelite. Most of them Babylonian or Mede. We go to Daniel. Everybody all gets enamored with the image of Daniel because Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, but he couldn't remember what it was. So Daniel told him what he dreamed, and then he told him what it meant. Right? Daniel got thrown in the lion's den. Nobody bothered to eat him. The lions weren't hungry that day. Right? No. God just shut them up. But in Daniel 5, Daniel chapter 5, it tells a different story. And this is another, there's actually two of our little old sayings that come out of Daniel chapter 5. And so I like it. And we're going to talk about it because this is also one of my favorite stories. It says Belshazzar, the king. Belshazzar was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the king that, he was the first king. He's the one that conquered Babylonia, or Babylonians that conquered it, Jerusalem, and they carried Daniel and all the people back. And he was the one that had the dream that Daniel, he couldn't remember, and Daniel had to interpret for him. So Daniel had popularity and notoriety within the royal family of Babylon because of this. And he was considered one of Nebuchadnezzar's great counselors. So it says in there that Belshazzar, the king, held a feast to thousands of his lords and drank wine before the thousand. And Belshazzar, when he had tasted the wine, commanded to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple which was in Jerusalem. In other words, plundered spoils. when he conquered Jerusalem, they took everything out of the temple. Well, that's where all the gold was. So he brought them. But now, Belshazzar is saying, we need more things to drink out of at the party. Go get that stuff that was made for God and bring it over here. We want to drink out of it. You getting all this? And it is drunk by his wives, his concubines, that they have something to drink out of. And they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines drank them. They drank the wine, they praised the gods of the gold, they praised the gods of the silver and of the brass and of the iron and the wood and of the stone, praising the wrong gods. Praising their gods, not the ones that these were made to. In that same hour came forth fingers. Of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw it, and he saw a part of the hand that wrote it. And then notice what it says here. And the king's countenance changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote together against themselves. You ever heard the phrase, somebody's so scared their knees were knocking? This is where it comes from. I'm going to tell you what, from a party that the king had going on to sitting there standing with his knees knocking is quite a change in countenance. That's a change. Didn't help him much just to have that change. But at any point, the king cried out aloud and said, bring me the astrologers, bring me the Chaldeans, bring me my wise men, bring me every soothsayer you can find. Get them in here, find somebody that can read that. I'm off script right now, but that's what he said. So they did. They got him in there. You read this on your own. I don't have to read to you. And they couldn't find nobody. Does this sound like what happened to his father? Nobody could tell him what dream he had. Nobody could interpret the dream. And now he's got things written on the wall. The king watched it be written. Only it's not Babylonian and he can't read it. So he brought his educated men and everybody there. On down to verse 10 is where we're going to pick up again. It says, now the queen, and the sad part about the queen is you don't know whether that was his mother or one of his wives. Queen's just a global term. Since the king was in charge, the queen could have been either. But the queen says, remember, this is what I really like. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came to the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in whom the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, came from this man. Great, go get him. I want to talk to him. Have you got the part about the handwriting on the wall? Anybody ever heard that as a phrase? You got to be able to read the handwriting on the wall? Well, right now, Daniel was the only man that they're thinking might be able to read the handwriting on the wall. So if you jump on down to verse 25, they brought Daniel in there. And the writing on the wall was written there as many, many, Tarkal, Upshar, and I don't know what that means or what that was actually said. That's probably Latin. But is it Latin, Jim? Do you recognize it? Yeah. I think it's Latin, but, you know, that's normally what the King James does when they're moving something from English and they said it was some strange language, they just went ahead and put Latin in there. Meaning some other language that you can't, all you can read is English, just don't mean nothing to you. That's what it really means. But anyway, Daniel went to him, he says, this is the interpretation. Many, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Uh-oh. Told him that twice. Tarkil, thou art weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. So you read all that. It says, God says to you, the gig is up and you're in trouble. So instead of the king understanding, oh crap, he went ahead and kept his word. He told somebody, if you can find somebody that can read this, I'll give you all sorts of stuff. I'll put a big chain of gold around your neck. I'll put you big fancy robes on you. I'll do that. Well, the king did that for Daniel. That's just like his dad had done before, right? Then we'll pick up again in verse 30. It says, in that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. What a party. The king went from having to party where he had to go get more cups and stuff and offended God to the point he was dead by morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a word for that in the Bible. We call that judgment. And that's the way God's going to mete out the judgment to those people who have no respect for Him. Now, how do I know that to be true? Well, I just read one story. But isn't that a natural consequence? If things aren't going the way we think it should be going, we do things a little different. We pass on our own type of judgment. Guess what? There's a story for that too. Go to Numbers. Numbers chapter 22. Numbers, part of the Pentateuch. And Numbers, the book of Numbers is part of what was going on while the Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness. Lots of strange things happened to them. And most of it's recorded in Numbers. But in chapter 22, it talks about, and we're just going to jump through here a little bit, but the first part we're going to talk about is the king of the Amorites, or the Moabites. King of the Moabites around Jericho. They wanted to not have war. Essentially what it was. So Balak, the king of the Moabites, sent for a holy man by the name of Balaam. Balaam was known throughout that region of the world as being able to come up when people were about to go to war. He would come if you paid him the fee of divination. He would come and bless your army would be victorious. I look at that a lot of times, I think, I wonder why he did it that way. And I've got to be sitting there thinking, well, it's just because did God really care whether the Amorites or the Moabites or the Jerichos, did he care who won that war? They weren't fighting his people. They were just having war. So yeah, he let that. And it gave Balaam, it gave him authority to do these things. And that gave him, what's the word I'm looking for? Credibility. The kings of that time knew that if they could get Balaam to come and bless their army, they would win the battle. So this Balak sat there and he had seen how the Israelites were conquering everybody else, and he says, wait a minute, I don't want to fight these people. And if I do fight them, I want to win. So he called Balaam. He came over. He says, would you come over and bless us so that we won't have this problem when these Israelite people start coming in? Now, that's the background up on us. But when you get into what happened, Balak called Balaam. He sent him the money. He sent the money with these couriers, and he says, bless us so that we don't have this problem. And find the verse where it says it first. The first thing is there. The first time he did it, I believe in verse 8, 7 and 8, it talks about it. It says, and he said to them, lodge here the night, and I will bring you word again. This is Balaam talking to the couriers. As the Lord will speak to me about the princes of Moab. And then Balaam went on and went to sleep. And the next morning he got up, and it says there, and God came to Balaam and said, what these men are asking, what men are these with thee? And Balaam said unto him, Balak the son of Zippor, the king of the Moabs, has sent them to me, saying, behold. And then God, down at verse 12, God said unto Balaam, thou shalt not go with them, and thou shalt not curse the people, the Israelites, for they are blessed. So when Balaam rose in the morning, he said to the princes of Balak, he says, you need to go home now. Get into your own land. For the Lord refuses to give me leave to go with you. In other words, bye guys. When this battle comes, you're going to lose. Well, that didn't please Balak. They went back and told him. And he said, no, maybe we didn't give him enough money. Send more money and more prestigious people and go back and talk to him again. And you can read that on down as you go through the 22nd chapter there, and it says, no, I'm still not going. So he sent yet more money and more prestigious people, and they were going to take Balaam with him. You are going to go with us. And so starting there in verse 21, it says, and Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass, and he went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. Remember over here, God done told him to go twice. But since these guys compelled him, and since they come up and they were so insistent, he went ahead and saddled up, and he says, okay, we'll go. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. And when the ass saw an angel standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand, the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. Here they are riding along on their own. All of a sudden, this donkey just takes off and goes trotting out into the field. You got to remember, Balaam's got two servants with him, but you've got all these princes of Moab with him. They're supposed to escort him back. You keep all this in your mind as you read these things and keep it going. Here they are just riding around. All of a sudden, this donkey just takes off and goes out here in the middle of the field. The princes are looking around going, what is wrong with this guy? Balaam gets up, takes his stick, and starts beating on his donkey. Leads him back into the road, and they go on down the road a little further. And as they ride around, they come around with a vineyard on there, and here's a wall up beside the vineyard. You keeping up? I'm going fast through this book. You're keeping up? And all of a sudden, donkey turns, runs smack into the wall, and bust up Balaam's leg up against the wall. Knocks him off. Again, Balaam gets up, grabs his stick, and starts pounding the donkey. Why did the donkey do it? Because it was an angel sitting there with a flaming sword right out there. Donkey's smart enough to not go up against the angel. Balaam beats his donkey, gets back up on there, and down the road they go again. Now, here, you got to sit there. You still got a half a dozen princes and a couple of servants, and they're all sitting around going, what is wrong with this guy? He rides out into the field, slams into the wall. We're never going to get there. The princes of Moab are sitting there. They got to be looking at this guy and saying, man, this guy must be nuts. So they're going on straight, and the road gets narrow. The angel of the Lord is standing out in front of the donkey again. The donkey just lays down. Plop, right there. in the middle of the road. Jumps up off a donkey, grabs that stick, starts weighing on that donkey again. And this time, God allowed the donkey to talk. We're about, where are we at? 27, verse 27, 22, 27 says, and when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, he fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you and make you beat me these last 3 times with that stick? All right, how many people in here have had a donkey do that, have any critter do that to you? All right, what is it you're doing? Now, lots of places in the Bible it says, and the angel of the Lord appeared, and they were so afraid, and he said, fear not, and all that. And no, this donkey starts talking to this guy. Balaam, what does he do? He continues with he just goes ahead and engages him in a conversation. He says, and Balaam said to the ass, because you have mocked me, I would there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. He was upset. And then the ass said to Balaam, am I not thine ass, upon which you have ridden ever since I became yours unto this day, and was ever wont to do anything? Never refused you before. Oh, yeah. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam so that he could see the angel of the Lord with his sword drawn. Now, there's a sword available, but he didn't want to kill the donkey no more. What did Balaam do at this point? Some of you should have read ahead by now. He done the right thing. He dropped down to his knees and worshiped. Begged for forgiveness for being stupid. Now, why was all this happening to Balaam? Do you remember the beginning of the story? Why this was happening? Huh? Because he was told not to go, and he got up and went anyway. What did he do after this? Well, he went home, of course. What saying is this? You got to remember, we got polite times happening in most of our country. And talk of people having their ass speaking and things like that was not really popular amongst polite society. So how did this get turned around into a saying we all know? Straight from the horse's mouth. I like these stories. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Here Balaam had things happen to him where he was willing to pass judgment erroneously on his own animal, an animal which had served him well. Now, put that in contrast with King Belshazzar, who had simply just taken the spoils and plunder from wars he didn't even fight, and was insulting the Almighty God. God's judgment is a little bit different. God's judgment's a little bit more severe. God's judgment doesn't have to be instantaneous like it was for Belshazzar. But wise men like Job, I'll read you one verse out of Job, but you don't have to turn to it. It's Job 31, verse 6. It says, Job is talking to God. He says, let me be weighed in an even balance that God may know my integrity. That'd be a pretty good prayer for you if you wasn't such a sinner. How many people in here want to be treated right, want to be treated fairly by God? God love you. I do not want to be treated fairly. Huh? Dang right, right there. I don't want to be treated like I'm special. I don't want God to sit there and say, well, let's think about what you've done. Let's think of what you're worth. I don't want none of that. When they start talking about judging Dale, I want Christ to come up there and say, whoa, folks. We're done here. I got him. He's one of mine. Now, how many people want to be treated fairly? Yeah, we don't want to be treated fairly. We want to be treated special. We are told to treat other people fairly. It's in the writing of James. He tells us to don't be prejudiced. Don't try to put people up on this pedestal. Treat everybody as fairly as you can. It's good advice for us being human. Because God judges us by our heart. Christ will defend us based on His love for us, based on our love for Him. Turn to Psalms 62. We're going to transition from judgment to salvation. Here we go. And we do that through the Psalms. This is actually a psalm written by David. Psalm 62. If I can find it. There it is. So, truly my soul waiteth upon God, from Him cometh my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will ye imagine mischief against a man? Ye shall be slain, all of you. As a bowing wall shall ye be, as a tottering fence. In other words, things that are normally taken out because they've served past their usefulness. They only consult to cast him down from his excellency. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. Selah. My soul, wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from Him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory. The rock of my strength and my refuge is in God. Trust Him in all times, you people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. Surely men of low degree are vanity, and men of high degree are a lie. To be laid in the balance, they are altogether lighter than vanity. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery if riches increase. Set not your heart upon them. God hath spoken once, twice have I heard this, that the power belongs to God. Also unto thee, O Lord, belongeth mercy, for thou renderest to every man according to his work. Important part of that is He renders mercy. In other scriptures, it talks about how God will be merciful on who He'll be merciful, and He'll bless those who He'll bless. He causes it to rain on the righteous and the wicked. All these things happen, and all these things go on. But in the call to worship this morning, we read from Matthew 28. Probably one of them. Was it Matthew 28? No, Matthew 25. It's called to worship number 31 in your book, in your song books. You can go back and read it. I don't even remember what version of the Bible it was there, but essentially what we talk about in this section, Christ is telling about the King will come and He will separate the sheep from the goats, put the sheep on His right hand, the goats on His left hand. And He say, Essentially the same thing. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When you did this, he talks to the wicked and he says, you did none of this for me. And they come up with, well, I never saw you like that. When did we ever see you like that? You remember that? This is a call to worship this morning. Then he comes to the righteous and he says, blessed are you, because when it was this way, you did these things. And they said, well, when did we ever see you? Same questions, same accusations, same answer. Almost exactly. But the result was different. Those that he recognized that had done his work, had done his will, as Job said, weigh me in the balance and see my integrity. Treat me the way you would want to treat me. Treat me like I'm one of Christ. That's what I want. I don't want to be treated fairly, because I know what I deserve. It's a great wide throne. I want Christ to look at me and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of our Lord. If you wish for this, you have to first do, as they said in Mark 16:16, it says, he was commissioning the apostles. He said, go preach the gospel to all the world. Those who believe and are baptized shall be saved. Those that believe not shall be damned. That's it. It's two things. Believe and be baptized. That believing part keeps on going. That baptism part happens once, but it happens because you want to publicly profess Christ as your Savior. If you wish to do that, you come forward as we sing this last song.